What's up, YouTube? What's going on? Welcome back to Thomas Gallery, and today I want to talk to you about growing up in DC. Now, pardon me, I gotta adjust my thing. Growing up in DC was like any other city in America, in the world for that matter. You know, you got your ups and downs, you got your good parts, your bad parts, and all that stuff. But overall, I grew up pretty well in DC. I mean, some of my earliest memories was going with my mother and my father. We'll take my sister and we go to Bundy Ballpark. Those in DC know what I mean. Going to Bundy Ballpark, and it was usually like it was like a parking lot next to this building, and separated by a fence was a baseball field. Now here's the thing: it was called Bundy Ballpark, okay? And in my entire life, I've only seen two baseball games or softball games played there ever, ever. Okay, so but it was mainly like a hangout spot. The old folks would just be sitting there, having fun, playing music, talking trash, and all that stuff, like folks do now. And it was fun. Then like right across the street it'd be like this little playground. They used to have these it had this little step pyramid thing, and I remember climbing up the little step pyramid. I didn't really peep it then when I was a little child, but I realized back then they were telling me something. That was a step pyramid. I know that. And it had this little corner store right next to it, and then right across the street was Dunbar High School. Like up the street from Dunbar High School and all that. And I went to John Bros Elementary. Uh, I went to a whole bunch of school. Elementary school. I went to what Holy Name, Holy Redeemer, St. Anthony's. Um, I went to what is it, John Bros. Then in junior high, I went to Shaw Middle School. Shaw Middle School. Everybody, people DC know what I'm talking about. Shaw Middle School there. And high school, I went to H.D. Woodson, the Tower of Power, when it actually was a tower. I went there when it was a tower. I remember when the first time my mother took me there, I thought she took me to a jail because it was like a real tall, skinny building with like no color whatsoever. It was like a tall, just a bland looking concrete building. I swore I thought my mother took me to a prison. I thought she would set me up. I thought she took me to a prison. But no, that was H.D. Woodson, the Tower of Power. Shout out to the Woodson Warriors, class of '01. You know what I'm talking about. And, you know, going to DC, I said in the video before, I always wanted to go like around the downtown area to see all the little buildings. And I used to go to all the museums and stuff. I used to go to the Smithsonian as a child. I remember going inside the Washington Monument, going all the way up to the top, and you can look out the windows, the four windows. They have like a little map in there where you can see. We look out the window, you can see, as far as you can, but it tells you a little diagram what building is what, depending on what window you're looking out of. And I remember going to the Smithsonian and seeing the Natural History Museum and seeing the big elephant, whose name is Henry. I didn't know until I started working at that museum. Henry the elephant. And the Henry the elephant was named after the person that shot it, unfortunately. I remember going there, my sister and there used to be these phones around the elephant, right? And you would pick up the phone, and it was supposed to tell you history about the elephant and what elephants, the history of elephants, period. But all I heard was I could barely understand what they were saying. My sister and I pick up the phone and say hello, hello, like because actually it was a phone, and the person on the other side and would just tell us the different information about the elephant and stuff. And we used to have fun in there, going to the Air and Space Museum, going to just going up down the National Mall, that long walk to the National Mall, and going through Georgetown and what else? Going through the going around back then my grandmother and some of my aunts and uncles used to live on Bates Street. So they said those they know about Bates Street. So it's Bates Street, and Serve some quarters. Even here's the thing. People in this is how you know you're from DC. I said serve some quarters, right? It's like I said serve some quarter. Here's the thing. When you get to DC, it's a sign that tells you serve some quarter. Corda. Corda. Not serve some quarters. Now, you from DC say serve some quarters. It's a DC thing. Don't even worry about that. They grow up and go around the shrimp boat. I'm not even know these landmarks. People know what I'm talking about. I ain't even got the Ben Chili boat yet, but I'm gonna get to that. Going to the little shrimp boat thing. I forgot what train station it was right next to. And that was where I got my where a crab pinched my finger one time. The only time I got pinched by a crab was at that shrimp boat. I got my hand too close to the little open area thing where the crabs were. One joint just came up, got me real quick. I moved just in time, but whoo, I wanted to kill that crab right there on the spot. That crab had to die, but no. And right, they had the Prairie School. I'm naming random places, just to tell you like the places that I remember going to growing up. The Prairie School, and right next to the Prairie School was the gym, the YMCA gym, the YMCA Boys and Girls Club. That when I used to go to Holy Redeemer, that's where we would go for gym class. And our gym teacher, Mr. Ricard, would be our gym teacher. And going there, that gym used to stink. I remember the smell. It smelled like sweat. It smelled like sweat and pine. Sweat, pine, and funky socks. It always smelled like that. I remember that smell to this day. The smell still is in my mind. Sweat, pine, and funky socks. And we would go there for gym class and all that. And then we would have mass. It used to be a church right next to that. Was it? Yeah, is it? No, it's not. Holy Redeemer, yeah. Yeah, Holy Redeemer. I'm going way back. I'm going way back. And just going to Valley Green. Just being exposed to a lot of stuff in DC. You know, my mindset was built on because I said every place has their good parts and their bad parts and all that stuff. But I was fortunate enough to see all of DC. When I say I seen all DC, I seen all of DC. The good parts, the bad parts, the poor parts, the rich parts, the museums. Like, I was exposed to all of DC. And keep in mind, that's how you know you're from DC. Now, notice I didn't say Washington, D.C. That's how you know. People from DC, if two people from DC see each other and they say, where you from? They'll say the neighborhood. Like, you can't just say you're from DC. I grew up in Northeast. Northeast. Just, yeah. See how I spell that? Norfeas, Northeast. If you're in DC, you know what I'm talking about. I grew up in Northeast. Brooklyn. Catholic University. That's where I grew up. All right? I lived in a place, but the majority of my life, I lived there. Red Line, Metro Station, Brooklyn, Catholic University. You know what I'm talking about? And remember, going home, always going to the Subway to get a sandwich, or I would go to the carry out. I remember, I forgot, a long time ago, it was a grocery store. Before it used to be a Murray's grocery store, but before that it was something else there. I forgot the name of that store. And then I remember I always get like it'd be $2. I used to always take $2 with me and go to the corner store, and I would get a white styrofoam cup, some cookies and cream ice cream. And I used to always get a Slim Jim, and my sister would always get a sour pickle. And that was like every chance we got, every little tiny bit of money we got, we would go right to the store. We could walk to the store, get there, and come right on back. And before you know it, ice cream gone, and the Slim Jim gone, all that stuff. We had ourselves a good time. And going to the CVS, and then going up the street, or get my hair cut. Like the first when it was when I first got it, it was Mike's Barbershop. Those on people know on Monroe Street. People know on Monroe Street. Monroe Street, right next to right across the street from the church. You got church and you got post office. What church is that? Yeah, St. Anthony's Church. I used to go to that school too. St. Anthony's Church, right across the street from the post office, and up the street on Monroe. I think it was 12th and Monroe. You know, had the Subway sandwich place, and you had this little small little diner. Then right next to you had the laundromat, and you had the nail salon. Then you had the Masonic Hall and the Eastern Star Hall, right on the corner. I would go down there, walk down there, and just go to the store, get my little snack, go back home. You know, that was no, and then going to relatives' house. Sherman Circle. I'm naming places. People from DC know what I'm talking about when I say these places. Now, people who are not from DC or who don't really know it may not understand what I'm talking about. But people who are from DC and been in DC and know about DC, if I say Sherman Circle, if I say Bate Street, if I say Fifth and O, right? If I say the O Street Market, if I say the Big Red Store, the corner which says Big Red, you from DC, you know what I mean when I say it. Okay? If I say Perry School, St. Anthony's Church, Terrell Junior High. Okay? Right across the street from Holy Redeemer. Okay? The little small basketball court right across the street from Perry School, where I used to see my brother play basketball. Then right across the street from there would be the Dunbar track. My mother used to always take us, and she used to jog around the whole track, and we would want to race her, and she used to dust us. This was before I became fast enough for her. But when we were young, we would try to race our mother, and she would smoke our boots, man. Mother was fast, man. Forget all that. And she would always run with my aunt, always. And we just go visit my grandmother on Bate Street, or visit my aunt Fifth and O, all that. So when I say I've been in every part of DC, every part, I got family in all 4 quadrants. Okay? You name a quadrant, there's a family member. I'm sure there's a family member that live in one of those quadrants. So there's always some family member I was going to. There's always some museum I was going to. And Space Museum, the Hirshhorn, the Big Red Castle. The big Red Castle on the National Mall, or just walking up to the monument, or all the car streets, the Capitol. I've been inside the Capitol. All that stuff. The National Library, the different buildings of the National Library, the Shakespeare Library, all that stuff. So when I say I've been through all DC, my childhood was exposed to the entire area of DC. Okay? Now, here's the thing. There's other parts of DC. There's the part of DC that was given back to Virginia, because that's where DC came from. Pieces of land from Maryland and Virginia, split by the Potomac. Okay? So depending on where you are, you could technically be in Virginia, but it's still claiming as DC. Think about that. Let's look up the history of DC. DC is a part of Maryland and a part of Virginia, split by the Potomac. Okay? So if you see the river, the fork, and then it goes into one. The 2 rivers go into one, and it splits DC in half. That's the Potomac. The top part is Maryland. The bottom part is Virginia. It used to be a 10 square mile diamond. They gave Virginia back that land, but some people still claim that as DC. Okay? All right. So that's how it goes, like this. There's a river that goes right in the middle, Potomac. The bottom part is Virginia. The top part is Maryland. Brought together, you got the District of Columbia. Okay? That's a little bit of history. Here is DC history for y'all. Yeah. That was my upbringing in DC. That was me growing up in DC. All the schools I went to, people I met, all that stuff. Friends there, people still, friends still there. My family's still there. My mother's still there. My cousins, my aunts, my uncles, they're still there. All of them still there. I actually did my family history. My family tree from DC alone, I think goes back 4 generations, 3 or 4 generations back. Before that is like Virginia and Maryland. But from like my great grandmother on up until the new generation is all DC. So my family has been in DC since the 1800s. Me like the 1880s on to today. That's how far back my family goes with DC. Anything beyond that is Maryland, Virginia. Once you like the 1880s, DC on. Right? So that's how far back I go with DC. When I say people say I'm from DC, or it's from DMV. No. I'm from DC. I not gonna say I'm from the District of Columbia, but I'm gonna say that I'm from DC. It's in my blood. It's in my blood. DC is in me. I even got a tattoo of DC on my back. Hold on. See if I can show you. Hold on. You see that? That's a tattoo of DC right there. You see where the top part is? That's Maryland. If you don't see the bottom part, that means that's when Virginia got that part of DC back. And that's the motto for DC, just DC Omnibus, which means justice for all. And that is the date that the District of Columbia was founded. All right? So, that's DC for you. All right? So, that's just me grew up in DC, regardless of where I am in the world, I'm still DC to the core. My soul is DC. I live, breathe DC. My mind is cosmopolitan. My mind is worldwide, but my soul is DC. All right, so that's how I go. I catch you all later. Peace.